the meeting to order at 6:30. Can I ask everyone to mute yourselves because there's a lot of feedback?
There is a lot of feedback.
So if everyone, when we speak, if we could unmute and just stay muted when we're not speaking, that would be key. So now it sounds great. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:30. Before we begin, I need to read a script for how we hold remote meetings. As a preliminary matter, this is Mary DeCourcy, Chair of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Suzette Dowd? Suzette? Oh, sorry, you're great. Thank you. Nan Johnson?
Present.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Jennifer Lee Shea? Here. Good. Excellent. Thank you. Paula Melican?
Here.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Paula. Matthew Toth? Very good. And I'm Mary Catherine DeCourcy. Auburn Public Library staff, when I call your name, would you be kind enough to respond? Jean Collins?
Present.
Excellent, thank you. Cable manager Chris Hugo?
I do see his the icon on, but he's probably got it on. He and Rich probably have it on mute, Mary.
Okay.
But they're
Very good. And we haven't had guests before, but can I ask our presenters to introduce themselves?
Sure. Julie Jacobson, Town Manager.
Excuse me, this is Rich. I'm sorry to bother you, but Chris is doing the school committee, and I'm Rich doing this, okay? So that's
very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. No trouble. No. I'm still learning. So thank you very much. So we heard from the town manager, and we have Ed
Kazanovich, Assistant Town Manager, CFO.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself. So again, good evening. The open meeting of the Auburn Public Board of Trustees is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order on March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth, given the outbreak of the novel coronavirus. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comment, and those persons are not required to identify themselves. For this meeting, Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees is convening by GoToMeeting as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. And as far as our meeting ground rules, we're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules. I would ask that everyone, again, stay muted unless you're presenting or you're making comment, and that we would all listen to one another and not interrupt. So I am going to turn to the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from December 2nd, 2020. Just going to give everybody a minute.
Do we have a copy of those, Mary?
Yeah, I sent them in the email that I sent on, I either sent it Monday morning or Sunday morning.
Oh, okay. I was looking in the Blackline copy, but that's
Okay.
good. I did read them.
Yeah. Very good, thank you.
I apologize if I left that out of the packet. I was trying to hurry up and get ready. Sorry about that if I left it out.
We appreciate you. Sorry, and I did email it out with the agenda originally, so I apologize. So can I have approval of the minutes? Can I have a motion? Paula?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from December 2nd.
Very good. Thank you, Paula. Do we have a second? I'm looking for either hands or, okay, second, Nan, thank you very much. Just to run through the roll call, Suzette, you approve? You can just give me a thumbs up. Excellent. Nan Johnson already approved. Jennifer Lee? Approved?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Paul already did. Matthew Toth? Is that a yes? Yes. Is that a yes? Excellent. And I approve the minutes as well. Thank you. That's unanimous. Can we, item 3, reviewing the bill schedule. Jean? Sorry, Jean, you need to unmute.
Sorry. So there's several of them here. Usually a lot of them are the same. So I certainly don't want to go through all the bill schedules, but if anybody has a question about something, I can address it.
Nan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was interested in the new audio, the Vox books. I saw one amount, $41.95, account code 55110, and then at the back, I saw another 55110 for nearly $800. Are they the same account?
5510 is mostly our materials account. We're required by the state to spend 15% of our total allocation, which comes to about $90,000. So it's really for me mostly to be able to track all of that because I have to split all that up and record it. So 5510 is a town account, and I pay for library materials such as books and things out of that account. So you'll see that one more than anything.
So going back to the voice books, we only ordered the $41.95 then?
No, if you look on the first one, it's under Library Ideas. That's the parent company. And so that was, we bought quite a few of them. That was $2,000, but one of them came separately, so it was invoiced separately. That's why there's a little notation there. So the other one was just for the one book, but all the others are on that main.
I was
a lot of 5510. Yeah.
I was curious the
cost invoices
of one book, how much we were getting for that. So one book is $40.
It's about $40, right?
Okay. And we have how many of them? You said a fairly good amount with more coming.
Yeah, we have 52 at the moment.
Wow.
So it's a very substantial collection. By ordering more than 50, I was able to get a 20% discount. So it went a little higher than I would have, but then we ended up getting some virtually for free. They're really nice books. You should borrow one so you can try it.
Are they available to the kids now? Are people checking them out?
Just today, we put some of them out. Yep. There's a lot of cataloging, coding, and other things that has to be done before they can go out. So we had to, because it's a different format. But they're very nice.
And all ages, from kindergarten to what?
You really, ages 3 to 8 or 10, because the book reads along to you, but you also can take, turn it off so the child can then actually read the book to themselves too. So, and there's different age. There's some for little kids, and then there's some for older ones too. So it's a nice age range.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Any other questions regarding the bill schedule? Very good. So we're going to move on to the director's report.
Okay, so I know there's a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'll just touch on a few things. I kind of wrote them out so you get a chance to read those. The facility, you can see there's several, and there's another update on facility. So the boiler there had a problem. Tried to plug it, knowing it may not hold, and it did for a little while, and then it didn't. And so Ed and I talked, and Joe Fahey's also been, very much involved in this, and it was kind of just realized we have to just get a new boiler. So as of today, they started installing the new boiler. And so I can give you more information about the breakdown for that later on. They hope to have it finished by this week. It's not the same boiler. It's different. It's actually 3 different units. So if something happens to one part of it, they can just shut down that middle unit. It also would which our hot water heater was starting to leak, but we no longer need it. So that's all going to go out too. So they've been there today, bringing them in and getting them installed. Hopefully they'll be finished by Friday. So on Friday, in the meantime, we're running on the old boiler and keeping an eye on it. So they don't want to turn that off until the other one's ready to go. So Friday we might not have any heat, but that's okay. We can manage it. So very exciting. I wouldn't have to check for water all the time. Joe Fahey and I text all the time. He runs down to check if I get an alarm on it's kind of crazy. But the oil would be a nice next step. So the ceiling leaks, we do have a couple of ceiling leaks in the Merriam room. There's another one now. So DPW is going to take a look at the roof. It seems to happen when there's a really hard wind-driven rain. That's the 2 times that we noticed it after that. So they're going to take a look before we call a roofer or do anything else. Hopefully it's not going to be anything major. The ceiling tiles, I had put in one of the capital for in a couple of years from now was to have all the ceiling tiles replaced, which I think was like $13,000. That's in a couple of years. That's still in the capital account. But we wanted to take advantage of the building being closed. So we're actually going to do the children's room now and the foyer and that low part over the circulation desk and just that little short hallway instead of in front of the restroom, because they have to paint all the grids, cover everything with tarps and everything. So it's really a good opportunity to do this while the building's closed. So it'll really brighten everything up. It'll be nice. Anybody have any questions? Anything about that?
Any questions?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, Jen. Go ahead.
When is that starting?
The ceiling tiles? Possibly tomorrow. They're already there. They delivered them. So, depending on what other jobs they have, maybe it's a good day when they come in when it rains or something. That'll be a good time for them to do it. So it's kind of on their schedule. So, but the tiles are there. So
in the very near future, not May.
Oh, definitely this week or next. And it'll take a while. Yep.
Of course. Yeah, I just was curious when they get started, but great that they can start soon. That's awesome.
Yeah. So just a little information about the holds. That's really takes an awful lot of our time. It's still very robust. I know right now we have, and I took a quick look when I left, we have over 700 items in bins to go through. So it's partly as a result of the long weekend, but also half of our staff is now working remotely. So it's quite challenging getting through all those. And we'll have more tomorrow. But, we're working away at it, and people are very appreciative. So hours of operation, I just thought I would mention that when there was that snow cancellation day, all departments in town, and Julie, I think all of them did. Everybody worked remotely. We were prepared ahead of time. Certainly the library staff has access to all the tools that they need. We're very streamlined working together, and so we couldn't put books out, but we wouldn't be able to anyways because of the weather. So we were able to do a lot from home, and I certainly expect anytime there's a snow, weather issue that would be the same for us. We can just pick up and work from home. Also, remote hybrid work. I think this is our second week of working remotely and hybrid. So half the staff is in the library and half is at home. And then we switch so that the teams are kept separated. So again, it's pretty challenging because normally doing holds, it takes 5 of us about 3 hours to get through. And now we have half of that, and we have a lot of other things to do too. But our priority is to get the holds out. And this is what we have to do to stay safe. And Julie just in fact extended that for another week till January 15th. And I guess take a look at it then because the situation is, so fluid. Okay, so Newsbank, I know some of you tried it out. Hopefully, I know one of you said really enjoyed it and was able to actually listen to some of the news stories. And I don't want to speak for you if anybody wants to say anything about it, because I know a couple of you did try it out. I picked it up. Yep, thank you, Nan.
I tried it. I thought it was fabulous.
Great. Everybody should try it out.
I loved all the magazines articles too, the news articles.
Yep. Yeah, and if you make an account, I get the news delivered to my box like sometimes the hot topics and sometimes just the news, and that works really, really well. If there's something you want to go in and look at more, you can. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. I've heard from some people who are really, got on board with it. So if you hear of anybody who has any problem logging in or anything, please have them contact me. This is new. I do have one person who we can't figure it out, and neither can the IT people at Newsbank. But we're not going to give up. We're going to figure out what the issue is. Sometimes people say they can't get in, but they can't get in because they're not an Auburn resident. You have to have an Auburn Public Library card to get in because we're paying the subscription. But don't guess. If anybody has any questions at all, I'm really happy to talk to them about it. And I think it's a great resource too. So just before we left today, well, a little while before that, I sent another email, and maybe you haven't seen it. We were working on the digital browsing. I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at it. Those are on the bottom of the main website. So you should just try it out and see how you like it. That's going to be here to stay. We'll be doing a lot more categories as well and have those on a separate page. So it's really it's the next best thing to browsing on the shelf. You can't take a book off the shelf, but people are drawn in. It's like, buying something that's attractive. You see the title and you go in and look at it. It links you directly to the catalog where you can place a hold on the item, and we can help with all that as well. So we'll have a lot more different categories.
It looks great, Jean. I know you had it at the bottom of the page. When you add more categories, you probably could just have that top piece where you list it, just link right to that page. It was really easy to find. I did it on my phone right when your email came in. Just as a suggestion, if you feel it might be better to have it all on one page, but it was fun to look at. So I enjoyed the break.
What I'll be doing is thank you. I'm glad you tried it on the phone too. I'm not usually going to have 3 on there. Usually we have a lot of programs listed, but we don't right now, so it was a good time to put it there. You have to think about frames on a web page, so it kind of has to go on the bottom, but we're not going to ever have more than 2 usually, but directly underneath that will be a link. Digital browse more categories, and that's what'll happen. They'll click into that and it'll bring up a whole page of Vox books, DVDs, children's books, probably some different categories, like mysteries and so forth. So people really be able to stay, because we get a lot of calls from people say, I don't know what I want, I can't go browse the shelves. But this is a good way to to be inspired by them. They get updated every week. Once you set the widgets, it kind of updates automatically for anything new. And if there's nothing new that week in a certain category, it just goes back to other things that it hadn't, put up there before. So it's a really nice feature, especially now when people can't, look at the books. So I'm glad you tried it out. Thank you.
I was able to reserve 1 book.
Okay, good.
I got that new cookbook, Ina Garten, but every other fiction I looked at, 0 available at Auburn Library, even though they were multiple copies CWMI. So I'll be back.
Well, you might have checked just before we finished releasing them all. So we're trying to catch up with that. There's a lot of coordination that has to happen. If you put it in the catalog and you run the widget, it'll put it up there, but in fact, we haven't finished processing it or released it or coded it. So we're trying to figure that out, how to make it a little easier. So we're always trying to make sure we don't have enough people to cover the books and get them out, but we'll figure it out. And you might have checked it just before we finished releasing those, because we were releasing those right up until the end of the day. So if you have any questions, please call. Good. So Vox books, we already talked about those a little bit.
I ask a question about the Vox books.
Yeah, go ahead, Suzette.
Do you need to have a cassette tape player to play those?
No, it's built right into the book. When you open the cover, right inside the cover, it's very sturdy. It's built right in there, and there's a little a sheet right there about what to do. It's very easy for kids to do. It's very sturdy. There's just a little button they push, and then you hold it down, and then it starts recording. You can pause it. You can stop it. So there's no extra. There's nothing extra. It's built right into the book. So
Good, because I was saying it'd be pretty hard to come across a cassette tape player.
this is the newer version of the old cassette tape player. We don't have these. You really should borrow one and try it out. Then you can, it's something you can talk about. It's a new. Some libraries have it. Boston Public has them. not very many, so we're one of the first ones, and we have a nice solid collection. I'm going to be ordering more. So yeah, it would be fun to try it out. Tell me what you think.
Check them out. Thanks.
We received a couple of donations. I think you probably already read that one. Bill schedule. Programs, we still are getting a lot of response on our programs, which is nice because everybody's in front of screens so much. We're kind of always thinking, well, maybe not this one, but we've been very busy. Even the one that we have now that we're partnering with Heather from Hands on Nature. We have 40-something people registered to view that. So we're still pretty busy, but it's really hard for us to fit it in, but we're committed to do that anyways. Ted Reinstein's fourth one of his series will be next Thursday, and I'll be sending that promotion out either Saturday or possibly Monday. If I send it out too early, people forget. So if you haven't attended one of those, he does a really nice job. I know some of you have been on them. A cultural council grant, so I submitted 16 grants for a total of $7,803. I know last year, for some reason, not a lot of people applied, so we got all the grants. I don't know what it's looking like this year. I will say this year it was a lot more work to submit the grants because I really had to check with everybody to see if their programs could also be presented virtually instead of having to rewrite the conditions of the grant, which is what I had to do last time. So almost everybody there can also, we can convert it virtually if we have to. It was also kind of upsetting a lot of not a lot, but the ones, I don't want to say the names, but they've gone out of business. Their business just went away. I know that Suzette, the ones who did Frozen, you brought your granddaughter there a lot. She's folded, and she was fantastic. I mean, we probably had her 7 or 8 times, and she couldn't keep the business going. So anyway, that was kind of a lot more work. Hopefully, we'll get at least half of them. Update on state aid funding. It's going to be a little bit later for notifications this year. They did have quite a few libraries on waiver status. They're trying to work with them to see what they can do. We're not on waiver status. We're in full compliance, but we don't really know yet what the state funding will be. So we'll just have to wait and see. We'll get whatever our portion is. We're at full compliance, and that's what we'll get. But we probably won't hear until March, and usually we hear much sooner than that.
Okay.
And just as a kind of, I did put something in here is MBLC and ALA, nobody expects libraries to be open. They really encourage you to wait until you really think you're safe, and as long as you can provide your resources in an alternate way, which we do very well. So there's not going to be any penalty about hours or opening. They don't get into that at all. They leave that to local decisions, and there's no penalty whatsoever for that. So the fleece jackets, I think the 3 of you picked those up today.
Right.
And I guess I just inserted this as I said I would, even though I sent you the email right after the meeting last time to answer those questions, but I put these in here to the director's report. And so that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
The jackets look great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see that anybody has. Thank you, Jean.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're going to move on to the next item. We have Ed and Julie here to report out about renovations and the donor process. So I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Mary. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And Ed and I can probably tag team this. So, Mary, is it possible for you to go into the participants and then click on my name? And I think if you say make presenter, maybe?
Yep, I'm working on that right now.
All right. So while you're doing that,
did it. Great. Are you sure you want
all this technology, right?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to click on share. All right. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yay. Good job, Mary.
Thank you.
So before we start, I do want to just mention a couple things, and because Jean was talking about libraries still being closed and us being on remote, I don't know if any of you have seen like some of the public notices we put out lately, but Auburn's numbers right now are really bad. They're increasing at a rate that exceeds that of some other communities. We're actually at a higher positivity rate than even the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is. As of the other day, we were at 10.3%, and the state was around 8.4%. So we're above the state. Just to put it in perspective, right before Thanksgiving, we had about 300 and maybe 50 positive cases total since the beginning of this, back to March. And in about 6 weeks, we had another 500 positive cases. So we're at 893 total cases since March. And again, 500 of those are since Thanksgiving. So it is a dire situation, I would say. The spread appears to be predominantly, not all, but predominantly household spread, meaning thankfully it's not happening in our workplaces, our municipal workplaces, although I would tell you that some of our workplaces have had 1 or 2 employees get COVID, and it does affect operations. So that is why we have to go to a remote system. So it's a hybrid. So as Jean said, in all of our town offices, we try to change up how many people are in the office at one time. We're trying to keep within that 25% occupancy. It's very difficult. We still have to maintain services and provide everything that the public needs us to provide, but we're also trying to be really careful because we can't afford to have any one office get shut down because of lack of staffing due to COVID for 2 weeks. It would be tough. So I just thought I'd mention that. And one more thing I just want to mention, we do still have laptops to borrow, and I know Mary had borrowed one before, and we did purchase through the CARES Act some laptops for board and commission members. So if any of you ever find that you're having trouble with your computer, or you just would rather not put a camera on your computer and you're trying to get in somehow, just let us know, and we're happy to loan you a laptop for the meeting. They're great. I'm working on mine right now. Eddie's working on his, and unless sometimes many of them are taken at the same time, but it's rare that all of them are out. So that being said, thank you for this opportunity to present to you. So I just to prelude it, we've been working on some of these plans, most of these plans, for back 3 or 4 years on some of them. What fast-tracked it was Ed and I were made aware of a possible grant opportunity a couple of months ago. And we were trying to think of what the priorities are in town and where we would most want to put grant dollars if we were able to get them. And we really thought that the best opportunity for us to take advantage of would be to start to put forward this project that would link the library to Goddard Park and with a pedestrian bridge, and really make these 2 municipal parcels function better together, function as part of Drury Square, and give the library opportunities for additional programming and give the public an opportunity to be able to get to the library from Goddard Park. And I think Chief Coleman had said this, and Jean reminded me of this the other day. He said he often sees people out at Goddard Park looking over at the library longingly, his quote, looking longingly and saying, how do I get there? And that has come up a lot, as you probably you know. So we're just going to run you through what this project is. Just wanted to tell you why we fast-tracked it, because when this grant opportunity became available, we thought we should take advantage of it and move as quickly as we can. It takes time. We have some of these things still in process, thinking, okay, we're going to be working on this in the next couple months, then we're going to start looking for funding. And with this opportunity, we just can't pass up the chance to maybe fast-track it and maybe get the project going. So some of this is still, all of it's preliminary, but we wanted to share it with you. We actually found out, I think Ed was it the day after Christmas, maybe shortly right after Christmas, that the foundation that we were seeking funding from may be considering a grant of $500,000. So the minute we found that out, I reached out to Mary as the chair and just asked if I could get on the agenda, because now that we know it's a potential, we feel it's appropriate to come to the board. What we don't have right now is the name of the foundation foundation, the donation source, because that is still in discussion at the foundation level. But for us, we need to start getting the plans together. So should we get the go-ahead to apply for this grant, we want to be ready to go. So that's kind of the history of it. So just briefly, and I sent you all way more information that you probably had an opportunity to read yesterday. And so I can just go over it briefly. And obviously, this isn't the only time we're going to talk about this. We're happy to come back at any time and talk to you. Happy to have you call me or Ed at any time, any of you, and ask questions. So please don't feel like after tonight it's done, we can't discuss it. This is really going to be an ongoing process for a couple months. So there's lots of opportunity for conversation. I will tell you, this is the first group or board that we have presented this to publicly. So this is the first time it's really being out there in public, although this whole idea and the whole concept of linking the library to Goddard Park and improving Goddard Park and improving the library, this has been going on for a couple of years, probably 4 years now. So this is a proposed 3-phase project. So we would be looking to hopefully install a large sunroom glass type addition at the back of the library facility. So opening up the back of the facility that faces over toward Goddard Park with some type of a sunroom, large sunroom addition that would create a visual connection to the outdoor space at the library as well as to Goddard Park and hopefully this pedestrian bridge. So the second part would be to actually construct
Is it off the workroom or off the back of the building where the boiler is?
I'm going to turn to Jean if she can just explain exactly. She's better. I see the diagrams, but you can explain better. Yeah.
I can tell you the dimensions, although maybe Julie has that in her notes too. If you walk
I was
into
wondering
the library,
where the vehicle is going to be placed. Is it an extension of the workroom for the staff, or is it on the other side?
when you're walking in the library, okay, so if you're walking in the library and you look straight down where all those windows are, that's where it would extend, which is a huge benefit right there because you don't have to replace the windows. There are other things to do. So, that's one of the things to consider. So you'd just be walking straight back. It's just all going to be one level and just open up into a sunroom in the back. And it extends right over to where the boiler room is. So it's quite big. It's long and narrow, but it's a lot of space. So
this is public space. This is not workspace. This would be
correct.
Public space for the library.
That it's actually 16 feet by 79 feet, which is about 1,200 square feet.
That's great.
Sorry, Julie.
Yeah, it's a good size. It would be a good size. To go back, so the 3-phase would be the installation of some type of a sunroom on the back of the facility. I'm sorry, I have 2 computers going here, so I'm trying to look at. I shouldn't do this. I'm going to look at 2 different diagrams here. We would then construct a pedestrian bridge, and that's going to be the difficult thing because there's, as you know, there's a brook under there. There's some engineering and design challenges with doing that. And then the third piece would be implementing various improvements to Goddard Park, which we can show you shortly. So in other words, looking at that park and looking at, the rocket and what used to be the fountain and the pond and having the opportunity to clean that pond up and use it for something, use it for programs, use it for families that maybe want to, take out, maybe borrow from the library a book on sailing, and then we could buy little electronic sailboats, and families could go out there and use the sailboats, and we could have outdoor programs. So we really think that cleaning up and getting Goddard Park back to a state that would be, make it part of Drury Square, enhance it. So the reason I mentioned Drury Square is because the overall vision for this is really to make Drury Square into the downtown of Auburn. And as you all know, there's really no defined downtown, but we've been working hard for the last 6 years to actually define a downtown, to actually define it as a great place to shop, to have dinner, to walk around, to take advantage of some of these municipal facilities, these sites. So we have put a lot of effort into plans, and all of the plans have gone through a lot of public processes. meeting, several public hearings and public meetings on every single one of the plans. And the interesting thing is on almost in every single plan talking about Drury Square, the library is always talked about as being a huge asset. The park is talked about as being a huge asset. And one of the biggest deficiencies that's always defined is why can't you get from one to the other? They're right there. Why can't we link them? And why can't we do more with the outdoor space at the library? And you all know this came up in your strategic plan. Several people who commented on how great it would be to have I remember someone saying a Zen garden outside, to do some more things outside at the library, to do some more outdoor programming, to do some more animal or nature things outside. And there's really no way to access the back of your building. So that would be the intent of the project. So the plans that I mentioned that also talk about various aspects of this are the planning, vision, and design guidelines for Drury Square. And after these, you can just see the years that each of these were developed. So these were all been done since 2017, really. The economic development plan, the Drury Square Village District zoning bylaw that was recently passed, our master plan. We have a great facade improvement program ready to go as soon as we can get the economy, moving again as far as businesses investing in their properties. The ADA self-evaluation transition plan we just finished in September. And by the way, a lot of these, if not most of these, were funded by grants that we received. So we were able to get a grant and then hire a consultant to work with town administration and develop these plans. And then we brought all of them at a certain point to the public at several public meetings. We would put up boards, invite the public to see it, and they had the opportunity to ask questions and really have input into these plans. So they're really community-driven plans. We have suggested design guidelines for Drury Square. We have a wayfinding and placemaking initiative that we just finished with some amazing logos and signage that you're going to start to see in Drury Square. And we have the, obviously, your Auburn Public Library strategic plan, which again identifies in many different places the need for additional space, expanded space, additional programming space, and the desire to have more of a connection with the outdoors and with Drury Square and with the beautiful water feature that's there that we really can't take advantage of. And lastly, the Transportation Improvement Program, which is a state-funded program. That was where we got most of the money for the Auburn Street reconstruction project that you probably all see started this past fall. We also got $1 million from town meeting to add local dollars to this project. So it's about a $5.4 million project in total. And it's going to involve decorative lighting, decorative street lights, nice signage, beautiful landscaping, enhanced sidewalks, beautiful crosswalks. So Drury Square is really going to be enhanced with this project. And it just makes sense to have Goddard Park part of that renovation as well as the library. Again, the library is a critical piece of Drury Square. So just to show you a couple pictures. So in the meantime, knowing that these are the things that we wanted to do, we did use our technical assistance grant to work with the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission to start developing some conceptual design plans for linking the library to Goddard Park. So we started working on that, I think, last March. And it got delayed because of COVID, because, we couldn't have the site visits, the consultants couldn't necessarily come out, we couldn't do as many public meetings, we had to do them remotely. So it is almost final, so it's not completely final, but I can show you, and we do have a PDF, I think I sent it to you, of all the designs that they're working on, and that is preliminary. We just asked them to look at ways to connect the library. So I like this picture here of the library because you can really see how beautiful that water feature is. And then to the right of that, you can see where the consultant was suggesting a pedestrian bridge to link the library parcel, which is here on the left side of that, with the Goddard Park parcel. And you can see there's a yellowish orange line going around it. That would be a pedestrian walkway or potentially part of a bike path that ultimately you want to link your bike path into the bike path on Auburn Street and ultimately link that down to the bike trail and the bike path on Route 146. So it's tying together all of these things. This pedestrian bridge is really just a rendering that they tried to show us so we could try to show you how it would be connected. So basically we want some type of a bridge that would bring the two parcels together. And the engineering challenge here is that the parcels are not on the same topography. So it's going to have to be designed a little differently. I don't know if you can see my hands. They're like this. So if they were the same level, it would be easier to design a pedestrian bridge across it. But when you try to span this, you're going to have different levels. So it becomes much more of a design and engineering challenge. So that is the most expensive part of this whole project. So the total project cost, again, these are really preliminary estimates. We estimated it to be $1,010,000. So let's just call it $1 million. The foundation has told us that if they approve of our grant application, or the project, so we could put in a grant application, that they would provide a $500,000 grant, and that would be the maximum. So the $500,000 remaining cost, Ed and I have been, and Jean have been spending the last few weeks trying to come up with some plans for how to fund that. We're not there yet on all of the plans, but we have some good ideas on how to do that. So all of the funding strategies that we're looking at, at the end, we're trying to limit the impact on the taxpayer and yet get this project done and not give up the chance for a $500,000 grant. So I'm going to bring you through just the three different phases. The library sunroom cost approximately. Again, here's the numbers that Jean just gave you. It's 79 by 16, so it's very large. The foundation that would have to be poured would be about $25,000. The sunroom, and we're calling it a Brady room style. I would tell you we have to go out to bid for these things. So just so everyone could envision what it looks like, maybe Brady room bids on it, maybe another company bids on it, but it is that type of a construction. They're very often used in municipal buildings to add on to municipal public spaces. The delivery and installation is $25,000, and then we have to keep in mind we have to put flooring in it, and you're going to need to have shades in it because picture all that glass. So we're going to have some type of shade so when people are in there, they're either not broiling under the hot sun all the time. You can control the sun a little bit more. So that's important to have that. So that totals $310,000. I will tell you, we didn't calculate yet for landscaping the side and rear of the property. That absolutely needs to be done. We think that maybe it's an opportunity to work with, to come up with maybe a program that we do something outside, to maybe work with some community partners to get it done. But if you have a beautiful sunroom like that looking over Goddard Park and a bridge, you want to make sure the outside of the library looks nice too. And there's some great potential there. There were some great ideas in your strategic plan too. Several people talked about maybe making a little patio area. We had some tables and chairs outside where people could sit outside and read. So those are all things that we want to look at. The estimated cost of the Goddard Park. Yeah. Sorry, Sandra.
First off, I have a question, but Mary and Jean, I think one of you is giving back. I just want to make that note. You mentioned, Julie, early on that you thought there should be you stated there should be a way to get out to the park if you have the water feature from the library. So is there an egress being planned in this sunroom so someone could enter and exit the library that way, or is it all still the one entrance they're coming through?
I'm going to have Jean answer. I'm fairly certain that this also has an entry out to the backyard, out to the back of the property. Go ahead, Jean.
Well, it's preliminary, and so we really kind of have to do a feasibility study to see about this. The entrance really would be the main. There's security issues if people could come in different doors of the library, and materials can disappear, all kinds of things. However, at both ends, it's 79 feet long, but at both ends, they call it a panic door, but really there would be an exit there. So if there was some kind of emergency, maybe on certain times, if there's some, we have staff and somebody could be out there, we could leave the door open and people could go in and out. The way the initial conversation was, for security reasons, a lot is the entrance is really still the entrance. And if there's emergency, people could go back out. But that kind of depends on what we're going to do in the back. If we do have tables, and I think that's a conversation worth having. But right now, from my point of view, we'd have to be really cognizant of the security issues, or there's a lot to think about.
Understood. I definitely understand the security. It was just Julie's comment of back outdoor space, and if we're going to encourage people to get out there and get on this walking bridge, I could have missed it in these plans. There isn't any landscaping created to walk them back there outside the sunroom. So to me, I envisioned these plans as having an egress there to begin with, because that was the means of getting to the walking bridge, unless you were on that path to begin with. Which
So you raise a good point. I think we need to look at that, Jennifer. That's important, as well as looking at away from the parking lot, also toward the back. You're right, and I think maybe it's a series of walking paths, attractive walking paths that then link together. But you're right, it's something we need to look at. And as Jean said, we got to keep in mind the security, but we also have to keep in mind that there's opportunities to access that outdoor space in the right situation that does make it safe. So it's a great point.
I might add into needing to budget actual numbers around landscaping, because obviously then people may want to still be out there in the winter, and then there's the plowing, sanding, all of that good jazz that goes on. And this is, I'm sure, going to add a lot of fun plowing capacity to the town when we add walking paths and bike paths and egresses around this area. So just wanted to put it out because it sounds like it could be great benefit, and I wouldn't want it to be cut from our budget planning.
No, that's a great point. And the good thing is we haven't addressed the landscaping yet, so we're open to ideas from the board. If you have suggestions, that this could be a good part of the project where we actually start saying you have a little bit more flexibility with the outdoor space than you actually have with the building structure. So there's some neat things we should consider doing, and we're certainly more than open to suggestions on it from the trustees.
Excellent. Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Matt. Matt Toth, go ahead.
I'm glad to see that we're trying to do something with expanding the library, because I know that there was a lot of conversation about use of outdoor space, lots of concerns about expanding children's rooms and the meeting room. I don't know. We talked about a sunroom years ago, and there wasn't much positive feeling about a real kind of a sunroom, but it doesn't matter. What we're talking about is probably faced with a lot of glass, and to be able to take advantage of the view and not have all that ceiling glass, it just creates so much heat. I think that if everything works out the way we're planning to with landscaping and lots of other things, if we can get in here with that, there ought to be a way to raise money from a lot of different places with the help of the Friends. And we're hoping that gets reinstated over the next few months. I'm going to talk about that later in the meeting. But I just hope that we can keep the notion of children's room expansion and meeting room expansion in the forefront, because those are the things that seem to come up so often. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Julie, do you mind if Julie, do you mind if I mention something quick here?
Not at all.
I know that the children's room expansion we certainly agree that it's too small. I don't want to go into it too much because it's beyond the scope of this discussion, but if we push out for the sunroom, it gives us more room in the library, and it would be very easy. Well, it's not like building a bookshelf, but we could actually expand the children's room from inside. We could actually expand that by 52 by 16 feet, where that wall is, where all the DVDs are. That could move down, and that would give a nice additional space. We can't do that without the expansion because there's no room for everything, but that would allow us to, to do some sort of internal expansion of the children's room. I know that's forefront on a lot of people's minds, as the children's room is too small. And again, this is just, yep.
Are you saying that if this all goes through, as Matt just said, there are thoughts being had about how to redesign the current footprint of the library as this addition would be added?
Well, it's really just my thoughts so far. But I did talk with DPW just to see. It's not a load-bearing wall, so it doesn't really change much of the footprint of the library so much as just to give some more space for the children's room, which would actually be I think, very cost effective to do that. So it's just sort of a byproduct. If we do the expansion in the back, it does open up more space for moving everything else down a little bit. And then, we could probably think about that. So not the scope of this discussion, but I just wanted to mention it because I know the children's room is really a big concern for a lot of people.
It is. It's a priority. And we can certainly, I think that's great, Jean. We can consider that. Ed works, and I work with the department heads every year to look at the capital improvement plan and also to look at our facility improvements plan, which is where we put together what we need to do over the next 5 years, and we update it all the time. So this is something that we could add on to that list of things to get done, especially if it's cost effective. But as Jean said, it's not part of this specific budget. It just wasn't in this budget, but we're always looking for opportunities and grant funds. So just if we were to get this grant, we're still going to keep looking for other things that are out there to help support the implementation of the strategic plan.
Great.
So if it's okay, through the chair, I'll just go through the other two segments just for the cost. Goddard Park is probably the piece that has a little bit more wiggle room. We're anticipating that the cost would be $200,000. And this would be adding, you saw a bit of it, a walkway around it to connect to the library, putting in ornamental lights, putting in a new electric service so we could get that, the rocket and the fountain going again and have it lit up at night. Relocating the model rocket that's there to a more prominent place and maybe doing some, again, I'm jumping ahead, but maybe doing some programming through the library about Robert Goddard and how important he was, and maybe put some nice visitors type plaques there about what happened there, a little bit bigger than what we have now. We would probably want to install a fountain in the pond just to make that water feature and keep the water circulating, and replace the pumps at the rocket for the fountain. So again, this is about $200,000. If we went out to bid and some of these costs came in higher, this would probably be the area that we could phase out, or at least do some for now. So that total cost, that was $200,000. Sorry, I just want to see if I can get this here. So the pedestrian bridge here's the biggest one, again, because of the engineering. This would be, the span is much bigger than I would have thought. Bill Coyle, DPW director, and a couple of engineers went out and looked at it many times. And you would have to have a 70-foot pedestrian bridge spanning that. And that, the cost of that based on square footage and the width and all of that would be $420,000. The permitting and engineering is $80,000, which is about 20% of the cost. That's standard in a project like this. So there's the $500,000. So that's the most expensive item that you're going to see on this piece. So all three put together, you have the 310, the 200, and the 500. Again, landscaping's not included, but I love what Matt said about looking for fundraising, looking for other opportunities, because I think that's going to be an important piece of this. Then I just wanted to share some photos. So on the next page, you'll see Nan gave me some photos. On this page, we had actually taken some of these in the fall when we were thinking about doing something like this with the CMRPC. Again, not knowing we were going to start fast tracking it. So there's some nice pictures here of what it looks like, both winter views, like Jennifer, you were saying, take advantage of how gorgeous it is. And you can see how nice it would be to connect to that. Then Nan, I had to put courtesy of Nan Johnson in these, sent me these, last night Nan sent them, and took a couple of pictures of what it looks like now. I just put some of them in there. And then, again, to just go back to the DOT project, the Auburn Street Beautification Project, this is a map, as you can see, of Drury Square. In this map, let's see, let me get my bearings here. Can you see my cursor going around here? Okay, so right here, of course I'm pointing and you can't see my finger pointing, I apologize. Where my cursor is, that is the corner right near the fire station when you're coming down Southbridge Street, and the high school and the tennis courts are on your left and you're heading for Worcester. You come down Southbridge Street, right, and you take that corner to go to the fire station. That's that corner. And on the other corner is the Verizon building. So that gives you an idea. So a lot is going to happen in that Drury Square area, but as you can see, there's going to be a gazebo, there's going to be nice plantings. So we're really going to make that section very nice. So it just makes sense to extend that up to Goddard Park and tie it all in. It's a beautiful municipal passive recreational space. And then the other one, let's see, this just shows you, again, that same space. It's pulled out a little bit. So you can see Verizon, the credit union. So there's going to be some nice trees, some nice landscaping, some beautiful sidewalks in there, all the beautiful decorative lighting. With the opportunity, we picked out lights, Ed, remember those with the arms that we picked out? So the lights have actually arms on them. So you can hang banners and, you could hang flowers, flower pots. We just want to be careful of that because of the maintenance and upkeep of that, but certainly having seasonal banners, for the different seasons or different events going on in town. So it will be really attractive when you drive into that area. And then to go along with this, we got another grant and we worked on a wayfinding project. We put together a committee that came up with different wayfinding designs. We hired a consultant who actually helped do these designs for us. And this is what was finally voted on as the final designs. And I think they're really beautiful signs. So we could have a sign there that's for the library. You could have signs. So as you can see, there's different types of signs, A through G. And like this would be one that would direct someone to the library one way, to the Goddard Park, to the bridge. This one may just say, welcome to Auburn Public Library. So it's a cohesive set of wayfinding signs that would be in Drury Square, and the library absolutely would be a part of that. And then next steps, this is the last slide, the next steps. We, after tonight, and Ed can talk to you a little bit about all the different things we're trying to figure out to come up with the money to get this thing done. So we would be seeking approvals from a foundation for $500,000. We developed a financing plan for the remaining $510,000, recognizing, costs could go up. That could be $550,000. At most, it could probably be $600,000. And then we would probably have to get planning board approvals, conservation approvals. Do want to hopefully get the library board of trustees and your advocacy and your support, and the economic development committee advocacy and support, but definitely the regulatory boards and commissions that have to actually give an approval would be planning board and conservation commission. Then at the end, last step would be going to town meeting, hopefully at the May town meeting, getting a warrant article for whatever it is we need to do for the remaining funding. So we have a lot of work ahead of us between now and town meeting. So town meeting is, it's only 5 months. We're in January. And it's just so hard to believe. It's the first week in May. So there's a lot of work to be done, and it's really educating the public. So we think it's really important to show them that the library strategic plan identifies the need for some new space, new programs, outdoor space, a tie-in to Goddard Park. We think that's really critical to this, as well as showing them the master plan, the economic development plan, the Drury Square plan, all the things that the public already identified. This is going to pull it all together. This is the implementation of all the community plans that everybody has spent years giving us input on. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to have Ed just talk a little bit about how we would cobble together the various pieces of funding. We don't have the exact way yet, but we have some thoughts that he's been looking into to do his magic.
Thank you, Julie, and good evening, everyone. Just to add on to what Julie had indicated with respect to the decorative lighting, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but I think there's going to be a port in those lights that will allow for like holiday lighting. So if we wanted to put up some wreaths during the Christmas holiday season, we're able to hang them from the pole and illuminate those as well. So that's a nice little feature. That's a nice draw to this area as well. In terms of cobbling or piecemealing an approach to fund at least our share of this project, we've been really thinking about ways to do this. And certainly our goal is to minimize the impact on the taxpayers as best we can and try to do it through some existing funds that we could either redirect or we could propose a use of maybe some free cash in order to meet our share. So we began looking at some previously authorized bond issues for the library. There are some excess bond proceeds that are unspent out there, and maybe we can have a discussion about converting those towards this project. Certainly, I know Jean informed you of a boiler repair that needs to be done. Certainly, we're going to use a portion of those bond proceeds, those unexpended bond proceeds, to get the boiler fixed. But outside of that, we, maybe through, and we'll continue to pursue any grant funding that may be available. Certainly in the past, the state has come through with some earmarks in the annual state budget. I know that's going to be difficult to pursue given COVID and the loss of state revenue, but that's something that we will continue to look at. But outside of that, at the local level, we're going to look at the unexpended bond proceeds. We're going to look at the potential use of some free cash, maybe the use of one-time stabilization funds, and if need be, we will seek a loan authorization and borrow that gap that we cannot come up with to try to minimize the impact on the taxpayers. That's something that we're going to be looking at over the course of the next couple of weeks, and certainly that will go a long way in hopefully getting an award of $500,000 from the foundation. So we'll continue to take a look at that, and we'll report back to you and make a recommendation, and hopefully gain your support on that.
Thank you, Ed. Does anybody have any questions or commentary from the board?
I do.
Go ahead, Nan.
Sorry.
Was it Nan? I'm sorry, it was Paula. Go ahead, Paula.
Okay.
And then Nan.
I think Nan has a question too. It seems to be, Julie and Ed, are there some contingencies upon this grant? Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying. So we have to show proper funding that we can make the difference for them.
That's right. This foundation and this grant does require, generally, I don't think it's in stone, but it's generally a minimum of a 50% match. They will not pay 100% of any of the projects. So even when Ed and I first had this conversation and we talked about maybe we didn't know what the amount is. We had no idea what we were going to be eligible for. So we said, what about just paying for an addition on the library? And let's start with that. And then we'll worry about the other pieces later. But obviously the foundation said they liked the whole picture. Just doing one piece, and we like the whole picture too. But we were just saying, if we have to do one thing, can we just get the addition? And even with that, we would have had to come up with a 50% match. So the foundation trustees that we met with preferred to go with all of this, a 3-phased project. They didn't want any one piece, because really any one piece doesn't give you the whole. You know, it's nice, but it's not the vision. So that is one of the contingencies that we do have to come up with a match. And the other is that we couldn't use that money all for the addition, or all for the bridge, or all for the Goddard Park. It has to be shared between all of them. And were there any other contingencies on that?
No, I think you're correct in saying they like the entire piece as proposed by Julie. So they didn't want to carve out just the sunroom or the Brady room. They think all these pieces together would complement the addition to the library.
And I would tell you, the foundation also is very supportive of the library and public libraries and the services it can bring to a community, which is why when Ed and I recommended this as one of the town's priorities, we thought we were hitting all the buttons on what would be a good project to benefit the Auburn community. Not just, we could pick a lot of projects, there are a lot of things, but this really will impact the entire community. And to have an even nicer library than we have now. We have a great library now, but it could be even nicer. And we would also tell you that early on, when we worked so hard to get the approvals from town meeting for the billboards to go up behind the mall. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but that was about a 2-year process. We finally got the approvals to get the billboards put in, and that was going to give us $1 million over 20 years. We were going to get $250,000 up front, and then $50,000 a year for the remaining 15 years. And Ed and I had talked about doing this project at that time and using those dollars to pay for the bond. So you could get a 20-year bond, use the money that was coming in every year, and pay it down. We were notified sometime in April or May that that project has come to a complete halt and it's off the ground, right? It's off the table. And I would tell you, I don't know this for sure, but I would tell you I'm almost sure it was because of COVID and the impact on the retail industry and advertising. And, the billboard was going to make their money from advertising for retailers. And look what's happening to retail. So we can no longer assume that project will happen. I hope it happens someday. I hope it happens when I'm still there, because it would be great to see it happen. But if it doesn't happen, we started to look at other ways to fund this. We've actually had our senator and our representative put in earmarks for us for Goddard Park in various budgets. And again, like Ed said, with COVID, with the state funding, it's not going to happen right now. So we've had this idea for a while, and every funding source we think we might have to get this thing off the ground has kind of dried up on us. So when this opportunity came up a month or so ago, we moved very fast.
Great. Paula, did you have anything else before I go on to Nan?
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Nan Johnson. Sorry, you're on mute. Thank you. Sometimes it's a little sticky.
Dan, try the bottom of your screen. Look at the bottom.
I'm good. When Julie mentioned gazebo, the green dome, the structure at the high school came to my mind. I'm like, do you want to address that? Is that part of it or going somewhere else?
Good question.
That's always a really interesting discussion to have. So that's an interesting one. And I'll say this, there's been a lot of people who want to see that renovated. We tried to look at doing that ourselves through DPW, and the issue that we ran into, we had some volunteers, we had a contractor who said he'd donate his time. The problem we ran into is that it is lead paint. So the cost to abate the lead paint and take on that project, this was 4 years ago, was $10,000. So we had and still have a potential donor who's willing to contribute money toward that. And we have 3 other grants that we've been trying to get to match it. We went to town meeting and asked for, Ed, was it $2,000? Yeah, $2,000 at town meeting, so we could leverage and get another 8, and town meeting turned it down and said that they don't want to put any money into it. Technically, Nan, when that was put where it was, apparently the school committee, at the time it was placed on school property, I don't know, 15, whenever the high school was built, right, 20 years ago, they took a vote that the school committee would never put any money toward maintaining or upkeeping it, but it could be put on their property. So the Historic Commission got involved, and they're willing to seek some funding. So we have had a group that was meeting up until the time that some of the funding sources fell apart about a year ago. So it is not part of this right now because we're not able to spend any town money on it per a vote of town meeting. But we hope that we still have volunteers who are interested in donating. There's a small amount of money that's been raised so far. We do have a donor who's willing to put in a very large amount, I believe $3,000 toward it. And we have all kinds of great ideas for how that could be integrated into Drury Square and the school and that little pocket park area, but we just don't have the funding right now.
At this point, you'd almost want to rebuild it. Never mind take off the lead paint. Just scratch it and start again.
Right.
Thank you.
And the other complication complicating part is when you do remediate the lead paint, it's in a waterway area. It's in a wetlands
For now.
Yeah. So we ran into some issues with that too. That's one of those. It's a shame. You look at it and it could be beautiful, but it's very expensive.
Jennifer, did you have something?
I did, since Nan just brought up something tied to that area. I saw on the pictures you sent, Julie, I'm just looking for clarification on two things. One, in the presentation you just gave us, the one that's more of a pulled out street view, looks like you're adding trees to the parking lot by the post office. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, you are correct. So just, the Auburn Street reconstruction project is a state project because Auburn Street is a state road. So Mass DOT is actually running this project. Bill Coyle, our DPW director, has done yeoman's work. He's really been the liaison with Mass DOT and working with the contractors and the land takings that we had to take. But yes, in that entire corner, all four corners, there are landscaping plans with certain trees, and we've had several public meetings about what kinds of trees, but certain kinds of trees that, first of all, they can't be trees that are host trees to the Asian longhorn beetle, which has resided in Auburn since I came, and everyone says I brought it with me from Worcester, and honestly, it almost seemed that way. I swear it was in my car or something, because within a month of being here, there was an Asian longhorn beetle on Packagug Street. But because of that, we have to have certain kinds of trees. So, and then
it looked like it was that parking lot is already a pain in the butt, as I'm sure everyone knows, trying to pull in or out. So I was trying to understand if I was visualizing it correctly, since I hadn't seen it. I know there's always been the plans there. And then now seeing the cost of the bridge to cover the creek, I'm assuming, although I would beg to say it's probably safer for traffic and the pedestrians, is that off the table to connect the high school to the library side versus just ramping up a standing walkway crosswalk, since I can imagine safety issues for the pedestrians are going to be high risk, even if you make it a little bit of a speed bump.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the CMRPC had put out there in that package I gave you, maybe putting a walkway to connect the high school to the library. And Bill Coyle and DPW will tell you Mass DOT will tell you that will probably never happen. It's a 4-lane road. It's a state highway. It's just not safe. If we want to talk about vision, and how we want to look at, what is the vision of Drury Square 10 years from now? There's no reason we couldn't look at some type of a pedestrian walkway that went over the road. Maybe I know it sounds crazy, but you have to think.
I was thinking that, and I just didn't realize the cost until you just showed us the bridge. I mean, $420,000 is expensive. I knew it was costly. There's a reason why it hasn't been fulfilled by the city of Worcester, by the DCU Center. But still, it would be beneficial and in line with your vision of the town's remodeling of the square there. So I was just curious. So since Nan brought up something else tied to the square, I thought I could throw those in.
No, it's definitely something we've talked about. I mean, we would love to do that. We want to connect the high school to the library. Just, it can't be done on ground level. It's just not safe. But yeah, why not? I don't want to use the word dream, but have a vision. You have to have a vision, because that's what plans are all about. Where do you see the town, and how are we going to get there? And that's what we've been doing for 10 years, little by little, making these plans, getting everything in place, getting the engineering, and then cobbling together the pieces of funding to make it happen. So it's not out of the question that it could happen in the future, Jennifer.
Okay, great. Matt or Suzette, do you have any comments or questions? No for Matt. No, Suzette? Okay, very good. Thank you so much for that. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. So, Matt, you were going to present a letter to address some BOT concerns that we brought up in our last meeting.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to sign off. Good evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. If it's okay, Mary, is to talk about comments in regard to the Friends group and the reinstatement. Paul and I did yeoman's work on getting him all kinds of information, and that's finally done. And he is working on the IRS component of that. Sooner or later, we're going to have to come up with a check, and when that happens, it looks like it would be around $600 for that reinstatement through the IRS. I should find out to get approval before it's necessary to do that in case we don't have a meeting. I wonder if I could have a motion to pay the IRS the required amount, which is approximately $600, from the Friends account to get us the reinstatement. I'd like to make that motion.
Okay. Can I have a second on that motion? Suzette is the second? Very good. So we have that. Do I have to do a roll call, Matt?
I think so.
Okay, sorry. So Suzette gave second. Matt, you made the motion. Nan Johnson? Yes. Jennifer Lee Shea?
Sure.
Yep. Paula Melican?
Yes.
Excellent. And Matthew, you made the motion, and I support it as well. Yes.
Okay. The second thing is, what that Phil wanted on our bylaws, it's pretty simple. What he wanted to do for the fiscal year was to end it at June 30th. It's consistent with how the materials from the old Friends group is written. So we'd like to be able to use that June 30th date instead of December 30th. That's one part. And the other is in the definition of the treasurer for the Friends group. We should add a line that says the treasurer shall annually submit to the board of directors in writing a signed statement that all filings have been made with the appropriate state and federal agencies. He thinks that's really important to state because that's really what happened last time. All of those reports simply didn't get done. And so I'd like to offer those two suggestions for changes to the bylaws, and I'd make a motion to do that.
Do I have a second? Nan is the second. Suzette?
Sure.
I just have a question.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Jen.
Bylaws?
I'm sorry?
Say it again, Jennifer.
Bylaws?
I can't hear you, Jen.
The Friends bylaws.
Yes, the Friends bylaws. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
But I guess I'm unclear if we can vote on bylaws for the Friends group as the Board of Trustees for the library.
Well, what we've done is we did that to begin with. We did these bylaws for them. We have to have bylaws. And as soon as the reinstatement comes, then the people who are officers and who are listed on this material can take over. Then we don't have to do anything anymore. But until he has the reinstatement, we've got to do this.
Okay.
So quickly, I'm just going to do roll call in terms of supporting that motion. Suzette?
Yes.
Yes? Excellent. Nan? Yes. Paula?
Yes.
Very good. Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, and Matt made the motion, and I support it as well. It's unanimous. Back to you, Matt.
Okay. The other thing that we can take, that's for Jen. The letter to the town manager. Mm-hmm. During the last meeting, we had our conversation with a lot of issues that we brought up. Mm-hmm. We wanted to be able to, we thought last July that we had formally let the town manager as far as the library was concerned.
Yeah.
And with the following investigation and all the rest, there's no formal way that letter could have gone to the town manager. And so at the last meeting that we had, we decided that we would take this up again at this next meeting. I would bring a draft, which I sent, so you have that draft. And we can talk about that now and then decide whether we wanted to vote to resend it or not. There were some changes that were made to the original July 6th statement to the town manager, just to reflect the fact that there has been some activity since then in regard to these issues. But it's pretty straightforward. Everybody probably had a chance to take a look at that. I did not send a copy of this to Jean because I wasn't sure. I assumed she wasn't going to be at this meeting because I was told last time that she'd be gone probably at least 2 or 3 meetings. But I can send this tomorrow. You've had a chance to take a look at it. I've tried to put it in with each line so it'd be easy enough to identify if somebody wanted to make some changes or if we were okay with the way it was written. Anybody have any comments on this? Or
Yeah, I was just going to reach out. Go ahead, Suzette.
I recognized.
Yes, please. Go ahead, yes. Go ahead.
Are we looking for a motion right now? Because I'll make a motion that we approve that.
I didn't know. Well, I wanted to.
We're taking a minute to review and digest and comment before jumping immediately to the motion.
I agree. I was hoping to get some feedback from the team. If anybody wants to add anything? I'd just say, just as the chair, I'm in complete support, and I reviewed it before the meeting, and I wouldn't recommend any changes. Anybody else?
I have one change. My middle initial is C.
Great.
I think it's important just to note, as this is, a public meeting, that the purpose of this is again, as Matt mentioned, to express concerns we have because we want to have a fruitful experience for all involved. That this is not he said, she said piece. It's just to really find a benefit and to help provide clarification and understanding for us as trustees to continue to support that based on it. I just want to be clear that it's the goal, and correct me again, Matt, if I'm wrong on your terms there, is really just eye-opening for us to fully understand as elected officials here how we can best fulfill our roles and be contributing members of the community in this position to build success for the library and therefore the community of Auburn at large.
Yes, I guess that's what we talked about at the last meeting. With the issues that came up, excuse me, Mary.
No, I was in agreement. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
That meeting in December made it very clear, as well as the information that we had from Mr. Hennigan, that we really have little or no authority, and that it was clear at the last meeting how impotent we actually felt in being able to do anything that made any difference. But I think it's so important to at least, I think all of us felt that it was very important to be able to be clear about that and to help there's only one person that can make any difference in our ability to feel that we can contribute in a meaningful manner. And that's why we were doing it.
Right.
And the meeting, I reviewed our tape from the last meeting. It was pretty clear that it was.
Yep, it was.
It felt hopeless.
Yep.
Okay. I would hope that we may have to be able to have a conversation with the town manager at a subsequent meeting, but I had hoped that we would be able to have been able to do that last July, but we weren't.
All right.
So,
All set.
yeah, that's all I can think of.
Right. So can I have a motion to approve the letter? Suzette is making a motion. Can I have a second? Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Yep, thank you, Matt. Nan Johnson? Yes? Jennifer Lichet?
Yes.
Okay, Paula Melican?
Yes.
And I support that, so that's unanimous. Thank you, Matt, for sharing.
Mary, what
Yes,
would you like me to do with this now? Do you want me to get you a clean copy of this with
Yes.
correction?
Yes,
for
and
you to send? Do you want me to send that?
No, I would prefer that you send that.
Okay. All right.
Very good. Does anybody have any other commentary about that before we move to the next agenda item? Okay, thank you, everyone. The next agenda item is an update on the diversity and inclusion update discussion and next steps. So I sent out the information that Julie provided for us, and I just wanted to see if we have any questions, commentary, concerns. Go ahead, Matt.
Before Matt goes, I just want to chime in about that. Julie, my apologies. I think there was some confusion on who was getting when it was. I just want to clarify that there was clearly confusion on our ends where that was coming from. So thank you for the feedback. Apologies for the confusion.
No, and thank you. And I apologize because when I kept looking for it, I was looking just under your name because I saw I missed it. Did it go into junk? And then I don't know what made me find it. I wasn't looking. I found it under Matt's name. So Matt did send it. I didn't see it, and I wasn't looking for it at the time. So every time I went back, I'm like, I don't have it. So
I know we were all confused, and I just wanted to put it out there that it was a minor confusion. No harm, no foul on anyone's front intentionally. Just wanted everyone to know.
No, same here on this end. I didn't ignore it. I didn't see it from Matt, and just the confusion. So I appreciate it. Thanks. We'll get there.
And we did, and I did convey that I'm sorry. I did convey that, Julie, in an earlier meeting that you passed that message on. So thank you very much for your grace. Go ahead, Matt.
The question about adding equitable access to the library services, we could easily add that right in the first bullet and just say welcoming with equitable access to library services for all.
Okay.
And that would take care of the issue of equity as well as diversity and inclusion. And on the later paragraph where it says the APL makes diversity and inclusion, I don't understand. I guess planning and decision making for staffing, collection services, and organizational changes. I don't understand the need to remove that. Maybe it has to do with something to do with quote operational issues, so we wouldn't be allowed to do the staffing and organizational changes. But certainly on collections and services, we ought to be able to say something about that. I mean, I don't understand why that would be removed. What harm would that create for the community?
So thank you. So Mary had shared that concern with me. So I did talk to Bob Hennigan because again, whenever we have policies like this, especially a policy like this, it's got to be reviewed by legal counsel. Personnel policies are reviewed by labor counsel. Policies like this, general policies, reviewed by town council. So he did get back to me, and I'm just going to read. It said the words for staffing, collection, services, and organizational change were deleted as they involve personnel and/or managerial matters for which the BOT has no authority to act. The words staffing and organizational change certainly speak to those areas, as Matt said. The question presented asks why the BOT would not be involved in collections and services. The word services denotes managerial decisions as to how services are delivered. The word collections, however, may upon further consideration have a place in the policy if the board wishes. However, I would think inclusion of only the word collection in the 5th paragraph of the policy makes little sense, and in fact, it makes it very limiting. So he is suggesting this. He says, perhaps the language could be amended to read, the APL makes diversity and inclusion a priority in all areas of planning and decision-making so as to make plans and decisions in the best interest of the library as a whole. So he's recommending keep it generic, so there's no confusion or concern, or it doesn't matter whose responsibility it is and if the board is making a policy for something that they can't, or vice versa. He said just keep it generic. If the board's intent here is to just let the community know that you embrace diversity, inclusion, and now equity, like the American Library Association uses that word equity, he said keep it generic. It does not need to be that specific. Specific policies related to personnel management and staffing, those come under any of our personnel policies, which is why it wouldn't be in there.
Okay, thank you.
To elaborate on that piece, I pulled this from like a variety of other libraries who had it there. So personally, I don't think there's a problem with ending it at planning and decision making, period, because it could be assumed that all of those things could fall under both of those two terminologies there. But I was just pulling from a variety of sources to create this when we discussed it back in July. So obviously some other libraries have a need for that clarification.
Exactly. No, it might fit very well in another library like the ALA. I know they have a number of different statements that some apply to just their broad mission as a American Library Association, and some apply to personnel within the ALA. So yeah, I can see, some of these policies are used in other communities. Some communities, and this is town council's point too, is, at some point does the town want to have a policy, town administration want to have a policy, because we want to keep our policies consistent. I will tell you, we don't have one like this, specifically like this. We've talked about it. There's a lot involved in it. I've actually gone to a couple of workshops on things like this because it's complicated when it comes to personnel and management issues. So quite honestly, we don't have the statement yet, but we do have other things that we do have in place in our personnel. We have an anti-discrimination policy. We have an ADA policy. We have an ADA notice. We have policies that require us to react when people ask for assistance or aids so they can attend a meeting, go to a meeting, watch a meeting, hearing aids, visual aids, things like that. So we have developed all those kinds of policies. Some of them just got updated with the ADA transition plan in September. So we are trying to get all of these types of things into our policies as well. But I think that was town council's concern. Just if you kept it more generic, then you're still getting your point across to the community, and you're not getting involved in crossing over into what would come out of the personnel manual.
And then, Mary, in the last paragraph, I'm just wondering why you wouldn't tell somebody what they can do to resolve an issue.
Okay.
Mary brought that.
Excuse me, Jen, was that the purpose of that last paragraph, is to really just tell people where they can go to resolve these issues?
Yes, like we have on some other policies, their names escaping me right now. It says, talk to the library director if you faced another issue here. Just as an outlet, if there was the observation of or concern, there was a next step for the individual who felt something was amiss and could have, their voice heard in that statement. That was the purpose that all the other ones that I came across had just to have a next steps.
Yep, so I did raise that with town council. It's a good question because that was one of the first things he had suggested we take out. And I'm going to just read to you, if you don't mind, what his response was, and then I can explain. The mechanism for resolution of complaints by employees and or customers of the library are established in law. It would be difficult for anyone to establish a judiciable claim for a violation of a diversity and inclusion policy, which in general seeks to establish diversity and inclusion. But to the extent that one might be able to establish such a claim, resolution of such a claim would or could be made through the town manager's office, the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, and or a court of competent jurisdiction, depending on the complaint. So what his point is there are multiple avenues for someone to complain about discrimination. And this policy is addressing really, we're trying not to discriminate. So it's different in that if you have a policy that says you can't play loud music in the library, if you have a problem with this, go to the library director, because he said it's going to be very hard to either bring to court or have a complaint and there's really no enforcement. If someone comes and says the library isn't being diverse and inclusive, he said that's going to be pretty hard to prove why they're not being it. So his recommendation is not to get into a legal issue, put the policy out there, recognizing if it's a personnel matter, they'll go to the director or they'll come to me. If it's a matter where they really feel the library discriminated, unfortunately, they'll either come to me or they'll go to MCAT and file a suit.
Okay.
So his recommendation was not to invite something that we have no authority to enforce or to identify what the complaint really is.
Thank you.
So that was the reason, whatever.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks.
Matt, back to you.
The only thing is, do you want, or Jennifer, do you want to make a motion to make those couple changes? Or should I do that, or?
If I'm clarifying, I wrote our changes down here. We're just changing bullet 1 to welcoming and equitable access for all, and then removing, as per town council instructions, the extraneous words after decision making and the final paragraph. Correct? Happy to make a motion to make those changes and push this forward.
Just one second, Jen. If you add the word in front of the APL makes equity, diversity, and inclusion a priority in all areas of planning and decision making. So we use all 3 words.
Which line are you looking at, Matt?
That one that starts with the APL makes diversity and inclusion. We would add equity, diversity, and inclusion a priority in all areas in planning and decision making.
Gotcha. I put equity in the bullet point on welcoming and equitable access. But yes, we can put APL makes equity, diversity, and inclusion a priority.
Okay, in all areas of planning and decision making.
Correct.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion if you're okay with that.
Yep.
Also, was that you, Jen? Yep. Suzette? Yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay, very
Yay.
good. Thank you. Nan Johnson, yay? Yes, thank you, ma'am. Paula Melican?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Matt did, and I support it as well, so it's unanimous. Thank you so much for taking the time with that, Matt. I know this is a long meeting, but we just have a couple more items that I just want to touch on. The next one is, do we have any review or discussion around BOT tactics or questions, since we have the town manager with us tonight? I'm looking for hands. Matt, did you have...
I really haven't thought much about it for today's meeting.
Okay, very good. So what I will do is I'll just put that off until the next meeting. The next piece is I did reach out to Dr. Hanfield regarding a youth survey, and I told him we understand completely the conditions of the COVID-19, but we'd love to have more input from youth in Auburn, because it was absolutely pivotal last year while we were developing our strategic plan. He hasn't gotten back to me yet, and I will update the team when he does, but I said no tight, no commitment in terms of specifics, but rather a time frame that he could give the board that would be conducive with surveying youth regarding their interests and concerns or desires regarding the library. The last piece I have before does anybody have any questions or comments about that? I didn't mean to rush along. So I did reach out via email, and I'll look forward to hearing from him, and I'll get back to the team. And then the last piece on our agenda, I had a little typo there. I said that the next meeting was January 6th. I meant to say February 3rd at 6:30.
I'd like to propose, Mary, that we table that meeting and not meet until the first Wednesday of March in order to have the letter that's being sent reviewed and maybe potentially an opportunity for Julie to join us again for a discussion on what we may or may not learn from that. And then that also, to Matt's point on the tactics, gives us time to address that potentially collaboratively in conjunction with feedback. And that might give us more than enough time to review things. Just throwing it out there.
I'll support that. Can I have a second on that? I hear from Paula. Nan? Do you support that first week of March, the first Wednesday of March? Yep. Let me see. Suzette?
Yes.
Yes. Matt?
Yes.
Matt? Yes, excellent. Before we close, I just want to make commentary regarding the contrast between the last meeting we had and this meeting. It would be my hope as the chair, the reason that I wanted to introduce a problem-solving model and a code of conduct was to arrive at the kind of standard of this meeting. This has been very professional. I think everybody's been listened to. I think we've been very constructive. And it would be my hope. I have no need to move forward with a code of conduct or a problem-solving model if we can agree that this is the way we'll move forward in our meetings. So I think that the commentary that came across to me in the last meeting is the board did not feel respected. So it's my hope as the chair moving forward that the board would be given the respect that they see as appropriate and that I see as appropriate as the chair. So I'm not looking for any commentary unless anybody wants to share, but I just think it's really important. And I think it's important as a publicly, presenting that we show that we respect each other completely and listen to one another. So do I? Go ahead, Suzette.
I make a motion
Sorry, I'm
to
getting a
adjourn.
little feedback. Very good. So Suzette, a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? I second from Paula. Very good. Thank you, everyone.
I want to thank you all again. Thanks for having us.
Julie, thanks for taking the time. And thank you for being here. Okay.
Can I just ask one question, Mary? Sorry. Could you just clarify
go
the
ahead.
date? Do you have the date in front of you for the March meeting, just so we're all clear?
March 3rd.
I don't. Thank you. March 3rd at 6:30. I just lost my screen.
Okay, thank you.
And if we get any more information, I'll reach out to you all also.
Julie, thank you for your time tonight. And it's great to see you. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.